Canes, Panthers, Part 2, Stanley Cup champion. Mr. Cole, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Hurricanes last played Thursday. We'll get into that game and maybe some good things we can take out of it in a bit. But having 4 days off, is that the right amount of time, or is it too much considering Florida played last night?
It goes either way, really, where, some teams and some players, might value the rest, or you have a few bumps and bruises that you would like to, give a little extra day off here or there. But at the same time, you're in that groove, and, it's just a rinse and repeat day in, day out, where, you're playing every other day, and, the routine is so, I don't want to say strict, but you're doing the same things just nonstop. It's the same food, that just everything is like clockwork. So, while it possibly could, make a difference, I think with Florida, they were at home for a loss in Game 6, had to travel to Toronto for Game 7. Now they either probably flew in last night or flying in today. So, it's not necessarily the most ideal setup for them either. But, I think that, these two teams, know each other very well. They're very similar. They kind of play the same way, and they both have the same amount of depth, throughout their lineup. So it should make for a great series.
Erik Cole is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. I see. That's what I was going to get at. Is that it's funny how the Hurricanes were called boring, but I do see a lot of similarities in the way they play between the Panthers and the Hurricanes. Even like the Hurricanes and the Capitals play in many ways a similar way. What can you spot little differences between what Florida does and what Carolina does?
Well, it's not. I think if anything, Florida can sometimes play a little heavier than the Hurricanes, but in the Washington series, Carolina, played a little heavy when they had to, and there was some really momentum, physical plays that went on, with Ovechkin getting hit and Wilson getting hit.
Yeah.
It was great to see, from the Hurricanes standpoint. But they both forecheck really hard. I think that if there's one thing that Carolina does better than Florida, would be their back pressure and just kind of the relentless puck pursuit. Not just up the ice, but on the way back as well. I feel like Carolina probably creates more from those types of turnovers. The power plays are, I think, pretty even here in the playoffs. Obviously, Carolina's penalty kill's been good all year and has been, good during the playoffs, and that's going to have to continue.
Right.
That's going to be really, really big element to this series, especially with, the firepower that Florida has on a couple of those units. Where there's guys. Reinhart scored over 50 last year, or right on 50 or something like that.
Yeah,
so
almost 60, I think. Right.
Yeah, they've got some dangerous players out there, but and then of course it's always who gets better goaltending, and you look at the conference final 2 years ago, and just how heartbreaking that was.
Yeah.
with the overtime losses and everything. It's a very, very small margin of error, and I think it's going to be a heck of a series.
Erik Cole is joining us here. Does that series in 23 matter in any tangible way?
Only in the minds of the Hurricanes that they lost and Florida won, and I think they'll be better prepared for the moment and what to expect. Being at that stage of the playoff run, and I think the group's a little bit more complete than they were a couple years ago. I think just top to bottom, when you look through the roster, they've got a bit of everything on the roster that can have a really great run in the playoffs and have playoff success.
Erik Cole is joining us here as we get ready for the Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers Game 1 coming up at Lenovo Center. Does Game 1 carry extra importance because you're at home and Florida might have, at least in their minds, some mental edge?
I mean, I don't think that Florida should be coming in here with any kind of mental edge, and I think that the Hurricanes do need to recognize that it is very important to get that first one under your belt. You don't want there to ever be a possibility that you go down 0-2 to start a series at home. So I would put a lot of emphasis on Game 1. I would expect the building to just be as electric as it's been, and for the Caniacs to be out in full force. So, but I would expect for the Hurricanes to be able to go out and play really well in Game 1. And it's just like it was in previous series here this spring. They're just, you got to do the same things over and over again and just play the game the way that you know how, and within your systems, and just shift after shift, and you just wear on them. And I think that the Hurricanes have done that through the first two rounds. That's how they've been able to close out both series, and I think that they're going to need to do that again here against Florida, and it's going to be the toughest task.
Erik Cole is joining us here. There's so many factors in this series that are different from, or need to be different from 2023. In 23, Sebastian Aho did not score a goal in those 4 games. He had 2 assists, but did not score a goal. Andrei Svechnikov didn't play a minute. He was out with the torn ACL. In that series, Martin Necas also didn't score. Teuvo Teravainen was just coming back from an injury, and he really wasn't 100%. And he got 1 goal in Game 4, I believe, but the Hurricane, he really wasn't the same player. It was Seth Jarvis's second year in the NHL. Is there anything to take away from that and say we could have been so much better then that maybe the series could have tipped?
No, I don't think they need to look at it. I don't think anyone's really talking about it like that. I mean, in terms of, for the players, you just know that they won and you lost. Plain and simple. They've been to the finals 2 years in a row. They've seen it. They've accomplished it, right? So, for the Hurricanes, it's not, well, we were missing this guy last time. No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the roster was then. Like I said before, I think they're a more complete roster now than they were a couple years ago, and I think that shows. I think that when you look through the Hurricanes, particularly the forward group, I think that there's a lot more of just every bit that you need to be successful in the playoffs. And I think that they've shown that through the first 2 rounds, and I think they showed that level of of grit and toughness against Washington. And I think that they need to recognize that, this team that they're going up against, two long spring runs into the playoffs, into the Stanley Cup finals, winning it last year. They had a pretty good battle with Tampa Bay to open up, but then they just went seven games with Toronto. Like, let's get after them, and just we're the fresher team. Like, let's get to it right away, get to our game right away, and just be relentless.
All right, final question for you. And you and I talked a couple of times ago about getting Andrei Svechnikov playing the way Andrei is capable of playing. So just from your perspective, what have you seen from him? Obviously, we have 8 goals. So that's great. That's great. He didn't score any in the 23 playoffs. So what have you seen from him that maybe has led to this?
See, everyone will look at the goals and say, okay, great. He's scoring, but it's what he's doing. It's the process. Like, it's what he's doing, shift in and shift out, is the reason that he's having the success on the score sheet, right? And I mean, he's a wonderful player. He can play the game, up and down with a lot of speed and skill, but he can also play the game physically and a little bit more hard-nosed. Mm-hmm. When you and I have referenced talking about him, and what we want more of is a little bit more of the hard nose. I mean, he's a big, strong kid, and I feel like he's definitely, he's done a great job this playoff run of being a little bit more direct. When there's opportunities for a high-end play, in terms of high-end skill, I mean, it'll be obvious to him, and he can make that. He'll recognize it. But it's been good to see that he's been just a lot more direct with his game and a lot more in your face.
Yeah, and there's a reason why Jacob Markstrom swung his stick at Andrei and hit his own guy, Cody Glass. There's a reason why he was annoying the Washington Capitals. He has a way of doing things to get under your skin, and that's what you need in the playoffs. Erik Cole, Stanley Cup champion, my friend, I appreciate your time. I will see you very soon.
Sounds good, bud.
Thanks.
Take care.